Never do this. Yeah, you can look at it. You go on up there. Did you bring my water?
Probably not, Dave.
Or did you bring them for the celebrities?
Probably a combination of.
Let's see, how many do we have? That's okay. We got 6. Which one? Well,
While we are waiting, does anyone know of anyone who is deaf? 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 No deaf? I'm still signing. That's why I get paid to do. Anyone that want to know any sign language besides this? Oh, there's kids in here. I'm so sorry. You'll see that sooner or later, though. I did a sign. What signs do you want to know?
Oh, can I do one?
Yes, sorry.
All right. So we were drunk when we had our 4 kids. I'm joking. So, and obviously it didn't work. So a few years ago, we were doing is it 2 years ago? We were doing the panel for, not Supernatural, it was for Smallville. And Michael Rosenbaum, who was on Smallville, played Lex Luthor, and was doing a joke. He came in, and we didn't know this, but apparently every time there's an ASL interpreter, Michael Rosenbaum will walk into the room and go, diarrhea, 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 diarrhea. And for some odd reason, we think it's hilarious. Because diarrhea is hilarious, right? So let me get all the celebrities together, and once we get them all here, we'll get them around. Let me just go check on them. Got it?
He did not specify exactly. Michael Rosenbaum started with diarrhea. Oh, fast diarrhea. Explosive diarrhea. Any other signs real quick? Does anyone want to know anything? Horror? Like you're afraid. Horror. Yes. I love horror.
Corn?
And by the way, this is I Love You. This is Rock On. They are different. Rock On or The Devil's Head. I Love You. Anything else? Yes. Bagel. What is it? Bagel. Bagel, like the bread? Use that when you just your stuff. It's not popular enough to have its own time. Sorry. Yes. Werewolf. Werewolf. Nice. Love it. All right.
Vampire.
Vampire. Yes. spaghetti. Anything else? Spaghetti goes. Anything else that comes to mind?
I saw the sign.
Oh, you gotta sing it for me to find it.
There you go, there you go.
I saw the sign.
I like singing.
I never said I was.
Yes. Scarefest, what? Scarefest. Anything else? Really, really nothing? Last year they made me say penguin.
Black sheep.
Black sheep, or if you mean like the that's like literal, but if you mean like a family member, be like.
I need to learn this.
Anything else?
I do just have a question. Where did you learn sign language?
How did I learn sign
Yeah,
language?
or where?
Oh, where? I learned it in college. There was a deaf girl that was in the same floor, and she took it upon herself to become friends with me. She knocked on my door, walked right in, had a piece of paper with words, and she just started teaching me signs, saying, "I want to be your friend."
Cool.
So then I started taking sign language classes after meeting her and hanging around with the deaf community there. Dated a guy who knew 4 languages. Sign language is one of them. When he and I broke up, I rebounded with his deaf best friend.
All right. I don't mean to kill the audience, but are we ready?
Just because there's so many of them, and I am so excited. Let me go ahead and do all of these as we go. We have Adrian Barbeau. Tom Savini. Warner Schmidt. John Antlin. Come on, Martin. Leo Ferrucci. And Christine Romeo. Give it up, Mark Clinton. All right, does everybody have a seat down through there? I wanted to make sure everybody had are we one short? No, we're right here. Somebody can come, John, you would come down here. We'll move Kat back a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. We'll put you right here. Well, and yes, please have a seat. So, before we get started,
Well, what do you want to know?
well, before we get started, I just wanted to show off. I've met most of you before I got this cool gig years ago. This is my original one sheet. Signed by George, signed by Stephen, signed by even Joe King. Let me tell you, when I say doing this panel, it's exciting for me. So I'm not going to geek out too much, all right? Who's got their questions ready? Nobody wants to hear from me? Yes, Jake.
Can't hear you.
Yell, Jake.
So what exactly was
Nobody knows. I was thinking Tasmanian.
Cool.
did he have it?
Yeah, he had legs. Yeah. It took like 6 people to operate one. My friend Marty Schiff had his hands in the feet, and he was under the stage making the feet move forward. And Daryl was inside, and all Daryl could do was move the head because all the facial expressions were operated off camera, with cables.
No, that I can move the arms.
Of course, yeah.
And my whole body. An interesting point though. We always say he. There is no indication in the script that Glenn is gender.
Hey.
Nowhere.
So you were a transgender, Tasmanian devil?
Right, okay. It's possible.
Who else? Yes. What became of Fluffy? The original Fluffy, Greg Nicotero, refurbished last year. He's at my house.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, just his head, just his head. body is, I don't know where the body is. It went all over the world, different pieces. That's it. Well, thank you so much.
Who's got the next question over here? Sorry, we ran out of room.
Yes,
Way
sir.
over there. I'm gonna shut these doors, so we won't loud.
Can't hear you.
For each of you, and reference the actor, can't be your segment, for each of you, which is your favorite segment and why?
Mine's Father's Day simply because I was in it. That is my favorite.
Well, for me, it's the crate. And the one thing I would love to do over again is shoot her in the head. Because Daryl was my right-hand man, my assistant on Creepshow. Now, for her bullet hit in the head, I had to press an explosion that shot the blood out of her head against the tree, and press the trigger on an air cannon that would make the hole appear, would pop a button out of her head. And I said to Daryl before we did it, don't pump the blood until I tell you. And I forgot to tell him because I was concentrating on the timing of the button and the exit. Because it would have been great if you saw that hole appear, that blood gushed out. When she laid down, we made blood come out. It would have been so great in that effect. And that's the difference today. Today, when they use CGI blood, you could do take after take and no cleanup. Back then, that would have taken hours to
It was
redo.
a special appliance that Tom made. I mean, there was a flat tubing.
Well, we
made
would have
out of,
had- We
smooth
would have
on
had to
material.
find the button came out and clean the tree.
Let's do more makeup.
Mine was Father's Day, because I wasn't. And because it was a group of actors, it was like a small one-act play, and we rehearsed it like a play. And all the actors were so on the mark. And both Steve King and George were very generous about letting us improvise. In fact, the line that I had signed on 9 million posters is, "Are we still conserving energy?" And I made that up. So they were very generous. They respected your talent. They were running it. So it was fun to do.
As cinema, I don't really have a favorite. I like all the episodes. I'm just with these guys. Craig's my favorite because I'm so in it. But I had the privilege of working with Tom throughout the whole film, and we made all the effects. And then, when it came time to build a monster, we were like, well, I'm here. We'll build it on me.
Exactly.
And so that's cool. I find a lot of people who come to my table tell me Craig is my favorite. I hear that again and again, but then again, those are the people who are coming to me to have science.
We had a name the creature contest,
Yeah.
and people just put names in the hat. And what won was Fluffy.
Because it's funny. Because we were saying, well, what do we call it? Because we were building a thing, we had to call it something, right? People who were building the first iPhone probably had a code name. You have to call your project. There's, again, nothing in the script, no name.
Oh, I have a couple favorites. Jordy Farrell, along with Steve King. Good friends of ours, Cleese and Barbara Anderson, were the designers on that. They were teachers at CMU. And Cleese built that all the green, which I just think looks very professional. I mean, really a great job. And I also like the E.G. Marshall episode. I think that just, you can't get those images out of your mind. But they're all good. When I look back on that film, it was such a good time. In my memories, is everything went well. But usually in a movie, it's, you're bringing your hand, All my memories are good.
The house, the Stephen King house, was built on a hill that was just a bare hill before that. It was screwing up pilots who were used to not seeing a house. Because he built it like almost overnight, and it looked like he had been there, for 100
My least favorite was the
the roaches.
Yes.
They couldn't have paid me enough to do what he did. Still, I mean, I made tarantulas, rats, bees, but not roaches.
There were 28,000 roach colonies. Most of the roaches were,
They're all still alive.
most of the roaches were pistachio nut shells painted black. Because as soon as you dumped 14,000 roaches on the floor, they were gone. They just disappeared. So it was lucky that we got the shots we did.
Wasn't there a roach?
Oh, yeah.
We sent 2 entomologists to Trinidad to collect the roaches. The roaches live in caves in fat shit. So they would dig a hole in the back wall as far as they could, turn the lights off, wait 60 seconds, turn the lights back on. The hole would be filled with those big roaches. They were stuffed them in plastic bags. They collected 18,000 of those and brought them back to the States. And they bred 10,000 more in the Roach Motel, which was a trailer. Big drums. The biggest roaches were called Georges, named after George Romero. The middle ones were called Stevens, named after Steve King. The smallest ones were Richards, named after the producer. So George could say, bring me 5,000 Richards, 10,000 Steves, and that's how they would bring the roaches to George. Thousands of them escaped.
Yeah. You're,
Well,
Oh.
we shot in a high school gym that had a kind of a balcony. That's where all the props and furniture were stored. And when the movie was over, we gave all of that to the Salvation Army, who got complaints all over Pittsburgh because of the huge roaches that were living in there. So yeah, there's a new breed of roaches in Pittsburgh because of creep show.
no, I was gonna say that was that was one I was in, the segment that I was in. And we asked E.G. Marshall, played Mr. Pratt, doesn't it bother you to have these roaches on you? And he said, I grew up in Hell's Kitchen. It doesn't bother me. Because he had them on.
All the actors were so terrific to work with. Adrienne especially, and Chris Weaver, Al Holbrook, E.G. Marshall, they were so kind and supportive. Because, we were a little independent film company, and they were, I think, it was refreshing to come to Pittsburgh and have a little writing grant.
It was one of the greatest enjoyments of my life. I fell in love with you and George and Pittsburgh and Hal and Fritz and everybody involved. It was just a fantastic experience. And, when I was first sent the script and I read it, and I didn't know George from Adam. I'm not a horror. I don't have horror in my background. I can't do this. This is gross. This is, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. And I was married to John Carpenter at the time. He said, are you kidding? You're going to turn down an opportunity to work with the George Romero, the master of horror. I'd never seen it on I don't let it get. And I called Tom Atkins, who was already cast as the father in the interstitials, and was very close to him. I said, Tommy, you're going to do this movie? I mean, it's really, ugh. And he said, oh, Amy, you don't get it. It's a comic book. It's going to be very stylized. It's going to be very funny. You've got to do it. So I did. And it's one of the things I'm proudest of and happiest of.
And the way Creep Show came about is I was secretary in the office. I kind of did everything. And the phone rang one day, and a voice said, "May I speak to George Romero?" I said, "Who's calling, please?" I said, "Stephen King." Pardon me? Stephen King? He said, "Yes." So anyway, George said, "Oh, I'm a and he invited George to come up to Maine. He said, I'd love to meet you. I think we could do something together. So we got in the car, we drove up to Maine. We have lunch with them. And over lunch, they decide they each like the DC Chronicles. DC. And Steve says, give me a month. I'll come up. I'll find a script for you, or I'll write it something. And a month later, he said, hey, and I didn't realize at the time how unusual that was. But it was terrific.
Anybody else have questions?
Her story just kind of led to my question. What was it like working with Stephen King? Does anyone have any good Stephen King stories?
Stephen King is just a big kid that happens to be a genius.
Yeah, it's so fun.
He was just fun, always fun. He was missing from the set one day. I had to go to a war surplus store. And I'm driving to the store, and I see him in the middle of the highway, walking on the median strip with 3 lanes of cars on either side of him, reading a book and drinking a Perrier, okay? So it was no surprise to me when I heard he got hit by a van. It was just, so I took him with me to the store, and we bought stuff. He put his credit card down, and the girl said, I bet you're the Stephen King. And I'm going, and he's not saying anything. Okay, so, what is that?
He had a really nifty new little sports car. Remember that? I don't remember what kind. He took us out on a little ride in the curvy roads around the road. Still getting used to it.
He was just, and his son, Joe Hill, he lived with us. He lived in the makeup profession. He just always worked with us. And, he gets slapped in the face. I had to put the slap mark on his face. And he's hired me 4 or 5 times now that he's Joe Hill. He put me in Nosferatu, Lock and Key, the Black Phone. She has a chair.
Oh, wow. 40-something years later.
No.
Could it ever have imagined?
We hope to.
Well, I was telling somebody,
No, the future, we were busy making it. I mean, we didn't even think about what was going to happen later. We were real busy.
We were living in the moment.
Yeah, very much so. And again, like Sean said, pre-CGI, we were elbow deep in this stuff. I mean, physically, and it was very involved.
Well, there were only 4 stories. We actually sat around and voted on the 5th story, remember? Should we do the 5th story?
but when we did think it was really good, we were really happy with the footage. And Warner Brothers released it, and it was #2 in the country.
Wow.
And I can remember I had it cut out a variety with top 10 or 20 films. It was #2. We were so excited. And then Warner Brothers, the week after, they pulled all advertising. And that's why we felt just totally done. It was like, it could have really been a huge hit. But I think they were doing it too because they didn't finance it. So they were taking a loss.
But talk about endurance. I mean, of all movies made in 1981, 82, how many still have? We see new posters and masks and figures and items and releases. Like every time you come to a convention, there are new things that come out that are pre-show specific. People bring to us.
And a series.
Yeah, that too, of course.
Well, when the movie was finished, George called me aside into his office. He said, Tom, I've got bad news for you. The editor of the trade sequence, famous editor Paul Hirsch, he did Star Wars. He said that he left, he didn't show Fluffy a lot in this episode. And I thought that was great. That was great because as soon as you see the monster, I can deal with that. You don't care anymore. That's why Alien was so great. You never saw the creature until the last shot. They blow him away from the spaceship. So I thought it was great that you weren't going to see
Yeah, we didn't know that while making Fluffy, of course.
No, of course.
Of course, there was every hour after hour of attention to everything. But it did. That was the editing decision. Mysterious thing, right? And it worked.
Also, after the crate gets thrown into the water, her remains float to the surface.
What?
Her remains. We did a head cast of her. And I built kind of a head, this much of the chest, 50 cheek. And that rose.
You're Christmas.
Yeah, yeah. And it didn't wind up that way.
Yeah. So that means that she could come back.
Yeah.
If she could survive flooding, right? But go to my Instagram, her remains are one of the pictures of me. Go ahead.
The movie is very tongue in cheek. The comic adaptation is actually kind of serious. Has he been called?
I don't know that. Anybody?
I missed what you said.
He said the movie was tongue in cheek, but the comic was pretty serious. Creep show comic.
The movie
The movie adaptation.
Yeah.
The comic
Oh,
of the
but
movie,
it's a comic book.
not the one that preceded.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
No, it was
Came
all
out
meant to
with
be
the
tongue in
movie.
cheek, my memory. The guy that did the illustration.
Bernie writes.
Bernie writes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. The comic is a comic, but the movie had to do things to seem like a comic.
The flashing
That's a lot.
background.
Yeah.
Those lights, he read it. He lights, that was such a cheap thing to do, and it worked so well.
Now, when Leslie Nielsen was laughing his ass off in front of those backgrounds, he had a fart machine.
Yes.
We would be on the set, and he wouldn't tell anybody. You'd hear this coming from. And then in restaurants, he would do it, and people in the table next to George and Chris, and Stephen King, walked by and said, "You're the most disgusting person you've ever heard." But he had it on a Letterman show. I said, "Fuck, it's great to watch." But I'm sure he was doing that and making himself laugh so hard in front of that background.
He also was a really nice man. I can't tell you how fun it was to have such a kind, happy cast. Because it's not always like that. It's really tense.
Next question. Somebody back there.
So someone, as people involved in the industry these days, do you miss the time before CGI?
Are you talking
Just anyone?
anyone? No, I like CGI if it's done well, but hardly ever is, you know. It's kind of an economic decision to use CGI, like I was talking about killing her again, you know. When the blood is CGI, you can do take after take. You know, if we had to tear Joe Collado in half again, that's 6 hours. Right? Where CGI, you just do it again. It's just an economic. You get more shots sometimes using CGI, but they haven't mastered certain things. Cars getting, you know, falling off cliffs, people. But even on The Walking Dead, there was a scene where the cast was getting knocked on the head, their throats were being cut, and blood was gushing into this trough. Okay, they didn't put any appliance on those people. The CGI guys just embraced the tubing. So it's an economic decision.
As far as like your personal enjoyment of the work, would you prefer it before it was more hands-on?
Well, when you see the werewolf transformation, American werewolf, it's happening right. You know, when you see my stuff in the movie, it's happening right. It takes you got to change your mindset when you're watching CGI. When I saw Jurassic Park, I didn't see any dinosaurs. I pictured people sitting at a computer, and that pissed me off. So the next time I saw it, I had to change my mindset. No matter what I see, foreground, background, it's really there. And the movie was terrific, but I had to make that effort. It's a collective dislike of CGI because people don't want to make that effort. You know, sometimes.
He's asking you as an artist, would you rather be working with CGI or without?
You
If
know
there were
what?
no financial
Yeah, well, there were times when I wish I had CGI to erase an edge or something, but I prefer, and it seems the public does, practical effects. J.J. Abrams, when he did his Star Wars movie, it was mostly practical effects. When the new Evil Dead movie came out, they were bragging that there's no CGI in this movie. It was all practical. And there's a different feeling when you watch the practical stuff.
So this is for Adrian. Going back to your comment about living through the crate, then do we have the possibility of looking forward to a 40 years later family sitcom with you and Fluffy as grandparents? That doesn't happen. I feel like something's really being touched.
I guess we have to go back to Stephen for that. But George isn't here. No.
You know what it'd be like young Frankenstein when the Frankenstein monster is in bed reading a newspaper with Madeline Kahn. They settle down.
The same thing happened for me with Maggie in Escape from New York. Originally there was no shot of Maggie dead on the ground. And J.J. Abrams, as a teenager, saw an early screening to which John asked, what's everybody thinking? And J.J. said, well, what happened to Maggie? So we went back into my garage and put the costume on and put the blood on and put me down on the ground and took that last shot. I didn't get to do Escape from L.A. because Maggie was dead. When I hear it, I probably didn't miss anything.
Front row there.
For $100.
Oh, wait, she can't, there's an actor strike.
Actually, I'm going to tell you a different story about Billy. In 2012, I think it was, I did 9 months on General Hospital. And right toward the end of my run, they wrote a scene for me where I was up against these two big Italian Goombas, they were really giving me trouble. And on CBS TV in the afternoon, my character got to say, "Get out of my way, you guys, or I swear to God, you'll be wearing your balls for earrings." Just call me Billy. It went right over their head.
Way back there. Yeah.
This is for what would it feel to play a sex machine with the dog?
Every guy would love to play a character called Sex Machine in a vampire. I was overjoyed. I would go to parties and they would be like the Suits, the money guys. Who are you? What are you playing? Sex Machine. They couldn't believe. But you know what? I think he got it from a James Brown song. Did James Brown have a song?
Yeah,
I think that's where Quentin got it. Because Quentin wrote that. I look very at home. Well, on the first take, the gun came up and one of the cartridges fell off. That was an hour-long laugh. Front row. Oh, there you go.
We got two. I got two. Right over here.
No inspiration, really. I hired artist friends of mine to draw what they thought Fluffy should look like. And then I did some sketches. We gave them all to George Romero and Stephen King. And they picked one of mine, and that's why he looks the way he did. Again, I was thinking Tasmanian Devil. He had to have a big mouth because he gobbles her up in a couple of bites, you know. So, it just came out of my work.
I appreciate you all very much, but my question is for the ladies on the panel. How is your feeling for being in the genre of horror? Working in this genre? I just want to know your opinion. It's not so much the genre as it is the specific approach to the genre. I get offered many, many scripts where I'll read the first 5 pages and say, no, thank you, this isn't for me, because you don't know who the characters are, you don't care when they get sliced up, the way they get sliced up is, So, but as an actor in the genre, I think we would all agree. It's great fun. I mean, you get to, it's such a wealth or what do I want to say? A plethora of different emotions that you get to play. So, but the genre's changed.
Yeah, I have no more to say.
I mean, the genre's changed. It's, it's
Funny, I look back on that. For me, when I was a young actress, I was just so thrilled to get to do something. I never thought like, oh, I got to go on or whatever. But I did Martin. It was my first film. And I was so excited. And all I said, anyway, I was in Boston for promoting it. And I got invited to be on a radio show. And I'm just so excited, so proud of the work. So happy with George. And the first thing the guy says to me is, what do your parents think of you appearing in a horrible thing like this? And I was I kind of talked. I didn't know what, and they blindsided me. Every guy just was over everything about how horrible, bloody, terrible movie you're in. And how would you be involved with something like this? It was, I can't even remember what I said, probably nothing. I'm so stunned. But there was
A stigma.
a big stigma.
Yeah,
I
I would look at Day of the Dead with Laurie Cardill in the lead role, who plays a very strong, dedicated, smart woman who really is in charge. And so I agree, the genre is changing, and I think George made a point of helping that change come about, especially in not just the casting, but the writing of Sarah.
What did you say about Adrian? When the content you read that. I'm just curious. So I don't want to do this. I want to do this. Oh, I've got to do this.
I thought,
Has anyone seen the convent?
see the convent.
Go find it. Directed by Mike
See the convent.
Mendez. It's 80 minutes. Shot on the same leprechaun sets they used for something. I don't know if you that or not. They used the sets from the leprechaun movie beforehand.
Oh,
Yeah, so-
I didn't know that. What I thought was, oh my God, I get to play Snake Plissken. I'm blowing away nuns with an M16.
That's all you need to know about the content.
So, can anybody here say, I want my cake the same way that was said in the movie?
Oh, I wish I could. It was John Lorimer that, did the voice. And unfortunately, he passed away shortly after the film was shot. And I would try. I always go down. I don't know if it's correct or not, but I want my cake.
Now, do you know with
Whatever I can do.
in every episode, there's an ashtray in every episode, same ashtray. It's on Warner's table. If you wanted to go see it, it's on. Is it really? Oh, I know, you're right. Greg made a point of putting that as much as he could.
All right, we've got time for a couple more questions. We've got our last couple. Yes.
Some of the episodes are. Yeah, some of them.
Because you directed one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did the last episode of the first time. Last episode. Anybody see that? No, nobody saw it. Pardon me? Yeah, yeah. You seem to have a history. Me and Joe. Stephen King was worried. He thought Joe was really going to get slapped. No, these are actors.
Every birthday, somebody somewhere, I get a text and email saying, I hope you got your cake. And speaking of which, today is Christine Romero's birthday.
I don't remember that at all.
I was Ted Stand-in. I don't remember that at all.
Ted, I will say that Ted never acknowledged that he was in the show.
People ask and he denies.
Look at these articles about people. I assume he was embarrassed.
I would like to say one more thing about your question about the genre. Now, today's market, the genre, the horror genre is, I mean, everybody wants to be in a horror film. That's the fastest way for an actor to, rise to the top.
I see one more clown killing people. One of my best friends were clowns. I turned down everything. There's a clown.
And with that, they're going to be here all weekend. Would you please give it up for our friends who did show? This has been amazing. Thank you.